Okay, so we're trying to make this podcast go viral.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we care about.
Even more viral.
So exactly. In order to do that, as you know, we gotta get people to leave reviews on Apple Podcasts.
Nobody leaves reviews. They text me privately and they don't leave reviews.
So here's what I propose. I think we should ask our viewers, listeners, whatever, to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It's kind of self-serving, I get it. But if they do, we will write for them a limerick using their username.
That's right. We will write and recite it on the next episode of Product Fridays.
Which I think is pretty good. I think you should try it with me. Of course, my username for everything is my college email address, which is arm5077. You got a limerick on hand?
I got one right here.
Okay,
ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. There once was a listener, arm5077, whose insights were simply from heaven. They wrote us a note that made us emote, and now they're immortal. On Product Fridays, legend.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Not too bad. I did not write that. ChatGPT did. Granted, probably better than I could have. So you could have something just like that for your username on the next episode of Product Fridays. All you have to do is write a review of this podcast. It can even be a bad review, by the way. It doesn't have to be a good review. Just leave one on Apple Podcasts.
Well, I should say welcome to Product Fridays. I'm Andrew McGill.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm Andrew Phelps. Happy Friday.
And what we are talking about today is how we, you and I, personally code products. How AI has changed that, where AI falls short, and what tools we are actively obsessed with.
Yeah, we should also do like the teeniest bit of table setting about what we mean when we say coding with AI, because you hear a lot about vibecoding.
Yes.
Right? Which is like, I don't know anything about how to write software, and I use something like Replit or Lovable, and you get a 0 to 1 product. You can put it live on the internet.
But it's like, hackers just make hay with it. It's insecure or whatever.
Lots of security holes and weird choices, but it like works. And it's created this whole new generation of software developers, which I think is great. But there's also something a little bit deeper, which I call kind of AI assisted coding or AI assisted software development, where you're building like real software or fully realized or fully functional production software, not just a little personal project. Maybe it is a personal project, but there's an intention that you'll put it out there in front of real users. And maybe you're writing more of the code, but AI is helping create and sometimes just give you feedback.
Yeah. And I think like 0 to 1 no code platforms like Replit have gotten a lot of press because they're popular with consumers. But I think the majority of AI is being used in the way you're discussing it by people who already know how to code. Maybe they work for Microsoft or something, and they're using that to augment their work.
Yeah, I'm working with real software engineers on client work, and they're showing me their code, and it's littered with references to Cursor in the code. And I'm like, I don't feel like such a fraud. And for these guys, it's saving them a bunch of time writing stuff that they'd rather not be writing so they could write like the harder, more interesting stuff. Okay, our listeners know we love talking philosophy, but I think we should start with like nuts and bolts, tools, software, workflow. Like I think for people listening who want to get into this stuff, it would be really helpful to just learn Andrew McGill's process. Like you've got an idea for something you want to make. You've probably got the whole stack. Tell me start to finish how you use AI to build software.
Okay, sounds good. I'll use a small example for something I'm trying to get out the door, which is like a little like meal prep app, which I'm hoping to get into more details on later. I come with an idea. And my first step is to go to ChatGPT and just start BSing with it about the tech I should use. Because I have my comfort zone. I'm like a JavaScript guy. I use Next.js. I know hardly anything about iOS development. And there's always these new vendors that are out there that promise to make my life easier. So I'll just go there and see like what ChatGPT thinks I should do to make this project happen. Usually in terms of large frameworks. Oh, should I use this database? Should I host it here? And I just find having that conversation back and forth helps it like me answer a lot of like ground truth questions right away. And it's doing a bunch of searches. It's pulling things for me that I probably wouldn't have known otherwise. So that's step number 1 for me. Step number 2 is something I've grown into as I've gotten older and older. Back in the day, I just used to start coding, pop open Notepad++ and start going away at it. And you quickly hit walls because you haven't thought anything through. I have become obsessed with thinking things through before I sit down to code. So almost every project after my ChatGPT phase begins in a Notion doc, which is my note-taking app. And I basically start brain dumping what I want this thing to do, what I think the architecture should be. Sometimes I get as nitty gritty as like what some of the like type variables should be. If I have an agent flow, I'll like diagram out what I think the different decision points should be. And all of this is because I need to basically think this stuff through. And in the process of writing it, my brain's doing that, and I'm editing it, I'm revising it. And I did this before AI came onto the scene. It just made my life so much easier. When I sat down to code, I could actually focus on just banging the work out. But the nice thing is that in the age of AI, as we move to the next step, I can plug that documentation directly in to my IDE, my developer environment. I'm a Cursor guy. There's a bunch of different ones out there. Cursor is a place basically where you can type code and AI helps you out. And the biggest way that it can do that, the bluntest way, is you can do kind of a Replit type of thing where you can open up an agent within Cursor and say, hey, make an app that does this and this and this. More often what I'll do is I'll say, hey, Cursor, read this document that I wrote about the project I'm trying to build. Like, understand these are the technologies I'm using. Like, map out like a folder structure for me. Or, write up a little database schema for me. Like, I'll start with a big overarching broad but not very hard thing for it to do. And then I'll start diving into parts of the app that I want to work on myself and have Cursor kind of do a back read on. Or I'll have Cursor pick up some of the easier stuff because, spoiler alert, my philosophy is, at least right now, if you ask any LLM to just make your entire project, you are going to A, lose sight of how it works really, really, really quickly, which just makes it hard to maintain and hard to build onto. And B, it's going to do something wrong, and you're going to spend so much time trying to figure out where that thing is, such that I am now using it in a much more incremental fashion.
Or spending an inordinate amount of your time like writing essays to the LLM to like fix the problem when you could probably be learning how to just find the line of code and do the engineering yourself. It's like a form of laziness in what you're doing all this extra work. It's very funny.
I agree. And just one more thing, like one thing that Cursor has that I really like is that it has the agent bar where you can tell it to do stuff, and it doesn't have to make the whole app for you. You can just be like, please make a function for me that tells me what day it is or something. That's helpful. But you can also flip a little toggle that turns it from agent to ask. And when you go into that mode, it doesn't touch your code. It still reads everything. It like queries things on the internet, but it kind of has a conversation with you about how you're programming it and gives you suggestions without implementing it right away. And I almost enjoy that mode more because it takes me out of the stress of being like, oh my God, Cursor's going off and refactoring all of my code. I don't know what it's doing. It lets me be a little bit more in the driver's seat, but have this really, really, really smart friend guiding me through my thinking.
Yeah. So my workflow, I think, is similar with some differences. I will actually start the conversation with Claude, not about, hey, what are some high level framework decisions that we could make here, but like, hey, I have this idea for an app. This is basically it. Is this a good idea? Does this exist out there? Hilariously, Claude is always like, this already exists. It's not a good idea. Go to ChatGPT and they're like, that's so interesting. I really like this. But it's good to have that editor making you really think a little bit harder about what you're trying to build. So I like to have that conversation first. Then I move into my equivalent of Cursor, which is Visual Studio Code, which has been around a lot longer than Cursor, before the AI era, certainly, but now has all kinds of AI integrations like Copilot, or I'm using Claude Code, which I find to be generally pretty great. And then I'll start having that kind of how should we architect this thing discussion with Claude Code so that it has that context and can start applying it and starting to write stuff for me. It's funny, I still don't have the maturity or the patience to like write that long markdown document that you are, even though I think you're doing it the right way and you're saving yourself a lot of time in the back end. But what's funny is I too used to be the hacker jumping into code and letting that be my first realization of something in my head. And I too learned that that's actually pretty inefficient and you end up making a lot of mistakes. But now with AI, it's so fast to do the equivalent of that you don't waste that much time. Like if it was writing 2 days of HTML once upon a time, now it's writing a prompt and you look at it in a browser and you're like, oh, this is something, or oh, this is nothing. So I still kind of do that. I feel like AI has enabled some of that laziness for better or for worse. Anyway, my example differs a little bit from your example because I'm always working on something, but right now I'm writing an iOS app. I've built many iOS apps with teams as a product lead. Have never written the code. Always intimidated me. Xcode. It's like a 47 gigabyte IDE with all this like
Insane.
nomenclature. If you want to like distribute your app to people, the name of that function is archive. Does archive sound like I'm ready to ship it? No, it sounds like delete. And yet in the iOS world, that's the way it's always been. We could talk about the weirdness of Swift and Xcode some other time. The point is, I understand the patterns that are common to object-oriented software development, but I don't understand all the markup. And so for this product, I really truly had Claude spin up the entire thing as well as a whole back end.
I feel like it's a spectrum, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like on one end is completely AI does everything. That's the like vibe coding we think about.
Yes.
By the way, I do that all the time too, just to get stuff like I want for myself out the door. Like I made like a movie ranking app that I just wanted to be able to rank movies easier. I'm never going to show anybody else. I just had ChatGPT make it. That's one point. At the other far end is like intense, artisanal, human hand-coded, which I don't know if it exists anymore.
If anyone's doing that, right.
And then I'm like at the 75th percentile where I'm having AI like guide me in my artisanal work. And I think you're at like the 50th or 25th percentile where you're writing sentences to Claude to have it code for you, but you are in the developer environment and you are like osmosising a bunch of this Swift knowledge.
I mean, I think learning programming language is like learning a spoken language where you could read books or take lessons, but it's like I never really learned to code until I had a use case, a thing I wanted to make, and I was Googling PHP documentation for every single function.
Same here, you're right.
It took me forever, but that's how I learned. And in this case, I really believe that like just staring at Swift that an LLM generated for me long enough will like through osmosis help me start to figure out how it works. Because then when I get into debugging, I'm looking at the same lines of code and I'm starting to figure out how that works. So it's like a really inefficient bass-backwards way to learn, but it's, I guess, how I learn. And maybe I should just acknowledge that and not feel bad about it.
Well, we both learn by creating,
Yes.
which I think is like what's fun about it for us. And it's just different levels of hand-holding from the AI, because at the end of the day, we're both using the AI as a tutor to help us create this product.
Yes.
And it's like my end result is probably not that I'm going to be able to code it entirely myself the next time around. Why would I do that? I'll go and learn something else. Your result isn't going to be you're going to become a maestro at Swift, though maybe if that happens, that's nice. It's that we just get a better understanding of how this software is created so we can like guide it into making better software in the future. But I do want to talk about some pitfalls because there are some problems.
Boy, are there.
To me, the biggest one, I don't know if this is the same for you, is that somehow these AI models are still out of date all the time. And I'm trying to code something and I'm using the most recent version of the OpenAI library, but of course, Cursor doesn't recognize that because it's not from within its like context when it slurped up the internet a few months ago, and it's using the old API, and I don't even understand like why things aren't working. And I just wish that these agents would get better at referring to online documentation to stay up to date.
Yeah, I mean, talking to an LLM is like talking to an encyclopedia. It's like the smartest, most comprehensive knowledge in the world, but it's only as current as when the book was printed. Real life example for me, I asked Claude to write a view in Swift using iOS 26 liquid glass elements, the new design language. And Claude very patronizingly told me iOS 26 does not exist. And I said, yes, it does. Check the internet. And then it was like, I'm so sorry. You're absolutely right. It exists. Wow, liquid glass is cool. Reading through the docs. Okay,
So
yeah,
polite.
that's what I'm talking about. But then after making that discovery, I'm going through code. I've now learned more about Swift on day 5 than I had on day 0. So I'm realizing it's using all these outdated libraries, all these patterns that are not considered best practice anymore. And I'm like, well, if I didn't know anything about the code, I might not know what I don't know. And I would just like ship bad software.
Well, I don't know if you've seen this too, but it also over-engineers out the wazoo.
This is the next problem.
Like, when I ask it to do something I think is pretty simple, it will write like a whole new helper function and use TypeScript to make sure all the types are right. And I'm like, this could be a one-line solution. So I often am like, please make this simpler.
Yeah. And related, I would put forth a third limitation, which that it can sort of miss the forest for the trees, which, by the way, is something that we humans are infamous for doing, right? When you're writing code, you're banging your head against the wall. You probably need to take a walk and come back, but you're staring at one problem and you're not considering other aspects. And this happens with me, not always, but sometimes, where the LLM will sort of be right there with you, fixating on the same problem. And it never says, let's look at the rest of the code base, or let's reevaluate what you're actually trying to accomplish here. Is this even the right approach? And so the role of the LLM sort of being an editor or a check to you suddenly feels reversed sometimes, where you almost have to play that editor role to the LLM.
Totally. And I find myself like correcting an architecture decision it made. And it always says, you're so right. That is a much more efficient way to do it. And maybe it'll grow in sophistication and have like a bigger background context of what the project is, but it still does get, yes, very much loses the forest for the trees.
So like net, do we think AI assisted or AI generated code is better for the world, for engineers, for people learning to code? I mean, is it a good thing that we're spending more and more of our time explaining what we want an LLM to write in English rather than just writing the code?
In my lived experience, yes. If only for the fact that AI has become this really helpful, trusted advisor that helps me understand my code better. Like, even if I didn't use it to write any code at all, it has replaced me searching Stack Overflow, calling up like my developer friends. Like, I still do that sometimes because there's some things it just gets wrong, but it 90% of the time can give me really, really good advice, especially around debugging, that is invaluable. So on that merit alone, I think it's great. I think it's maybe an open question as to how it is in terms of like developing or delivering efficiency beyond that, just because you hear all these stories about how like, Git merges get messed up because everyone's using different code generated stuff and they clash. And I'm not sure how it works at scale.
I had a heartbreaking snafu with a bad Git merge and the LLM making a bad assumption, but that's for another day. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's cool. Like, there are people that I would never think of as software developers who are talking to me about little apps they made. I've made this comparison before, but the iPhone made everyone a photographer, and all the professionals were annoyed by it at first. And then we realized the world can have room for more photographers. So I think the same is true for software development.
Totally agree. Okay, let's close it out for now. I want to continue, by the way, because I'd love to loop in some of our smart friends who are mega good coders and get their opinions. We'll see if we can make that happen. But why don't we move to honorable mentions? Can I go first?
I think you should go first.
Okay, culture time. I'm on this show that launched, I think a year ago on Hulu called Paradise. I'm not going to say anything about the premise because there's like a big plot twist in episode 1. So, no spoilers. But I'm kind of glued to it for almost a bad reason. It is a show that on the first episode and then sort of the second one appeared to me to be a prestige TV show. HBO style, amazing visuals, amazing acting. And then I started to realize in subsequent episodes, oh, this is kind of like a network TV show. Like, there are some of those dumb network tropes, like, why are they making out right now? That is not a good villain. This decision seems kind of rushed. That if it actually was a prestige show, like HBO level, that wouldn't be a problem. This would have like months of writing behind it. However, I have heard from the podcasts that the 7th episode of Paradise, which I'm about to watch, is apparently amazing, and I'm hoping there's just like this transformation and it actually becomes a prestige TV show.
I have to check it out.
What about you?
I got it right here. You want to see it?
Yeah.
All right. Halloween candy.
Oh my gosh.
That's my honorable mention. Here's the thing about Halloween candy. With each passing year, it is less good than it was last year. Nowhere near as good as when you're a kid. It does not taste good. Let's just like get that out of the way. And yet, we all eat it. And by the time Halloween comes, we've eaten half the bag. I will say every year, I'm like, all right, October 27th, time to go buy Halloween candy. And I go to the grocery store It's like $60 a bag or something absurd. And it's all the bad candy that nobody
It's
wants.
mounds.
So I was like, I'm going to go online this year. And for like $30, I got what I assumed was the equivalent to the grocery store. No, I have 400 pieces of Halloween candy. And these kids can't eat that by themselves. No. So that's why mom and dad have to help them out.
Okay, what's the favorite Halloween candy?
I just did a bracket with my friends about this, and it was actually excruciating, but the winner of the bracket was, can you guess?
Snickers.
Snickers.
Oh, Snickers is greght. It's the king of candy bars.
Yeah.
No question.
Lots of discussion about candy corn, which is terrible, but it's the quintessential Halloween candy, even though it's not good.
I totally agree. Well, this has been another Product Fridays. Thank you for being with us. I would remind you that we live on your praise and your shares. So again, we have our devil's bargain from the beginning. If you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, we will write and read a limerick in our next episode.
That's right. I think we did it. Happy Friday, Andrew.
Happy Friday. Boom.